4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, summarized by Detailed Book Summaries. Click on the subscribe button. Let us know in the comment the book you would love us to summarize for you. Chapter 1: The Limit of a Lifetime. To understand our relationship with time, Oliver Burkeman begins with a sobering truth. If you are fortunate enough to live to about 80 years, your entire lifespan will be roughly 4,000 weeks. This realization, both shocking and clarifying, forms the foundation of his argument. He suggests that most people spend their days pretending that life is a long, unfolding timeline with infinite potential, carefully organizing tasks, goals, and aspirations, as if there will always be more time to handle what doesn't get done today. Yet, when faced with the reality of 4,000 weeks, everything shifts. It forces us to reckon with the limits of our existence and the impossibility of doing everything we imagine. Burkeman explores how modern life has taught us to think of time as something to dominate, manage, and maximize, an object we own rather than a condition we live within. We chase productivity systems, obsess over efficiency, and try to squeeze every drop of value from every hour. But the paradox is that the more we treat time as a resource to be optimized, the more anxious we become. Instead of feeling empowered, we feel overwhelmed. He argues that our obsession with control stems from a fear of finitude, of the fact that we simply cannot accomplish every ambition, meet every expectation, or explore every possible version of life. This limitation becomes a quiet pressure underlying everything we do. The chapter lays out why time feels so stressful today. Technology, once thought to be our liberator, has become a burden. It once promised to free up time for leisure, but instead it delivers more expectations, more responsibilities, and more ways to compare ourselves to others. Productivity culture leads us to believe that if we can just find the right routine or system, we will finally reach a moment where everything is handled. But Burkeman insists that such a moment never arrives. Life, by nature, produces new demands. In an era when opportunities are infinite, but time is not, the mismatch fuels panic. What makes this chapter powerful is Burkeman's argument that embracing limitations is not a defeat, it's a liberation. When we acknowledge that we cannot do everything, we can finally decide what truly matters. Instead of spreading our attention thinly across countless obligations, we can focus deeply on a meaningful few. This shift begins by releasing our unrealistic expectations about time and accepting that any version of life involves trade-offs. The key is not to escape finitude, but to make peace with it. Ultimately, Burkeman sets the stage for a new philosophy of time, one that does not demand endless productivity, but invites intentional living. He encourages us to approach time the way artists approach their canvas, not as a race to cover every square inch, but as an opportunity to create something intentionally shaped. With this perspective in place, he guides readers into deeper reflections on how to embrace what is possible within the limited weeks we're given. Chapter 2: The Tyranny of Productivity and Control. In this next movement of the book, Burkeman examines how deeply modern culture has conditioned us to view productivity as the measure of a good life. Everywhere we turn our workplaces, schools, social media feeds, we are reminded that successful people do more, move fast, and optimize everything. Productivity becomes a moral value, and a packed schedule becomes a badge of honor. But beneath this busyness lies a profound fear. The fear that if we slow down, we will fall behind, lose relevance, or fail to build an impressive life story. Burkeman explains how the desire for control pushes us into a frantic cycle. We believe that if we just plan enough, get organized enough, and work quickly enough, we can subdue the chaos of life. Yet the more we attempt to secure control, the more elusive it becomes. New tasks appear, plans unravel, and unpredictable events intrude. Productivity does not deliver calm, it amplifies stress. We attempt to get on top of things, but in a world that never stops generating new responsibilities, such mastery is impossible. He also examines how our illusions of control distort our relationship with time. When we believe we can shape the future through enough planning, time becomes something frightening, a force that must be conquered or tamed. Instead of living in the present, we mentally race ahead to what needs to be finished next. Burkeman highlights how planners, scheduling apps, and optimization tools may help us stay organized, but they also reinforce the belief that the future must be perfectly managed. Ironically, our attempts to secure peace through control produce more anxiety. One of the most insightful ideas here is the efficiency trap. He describes how becoming more efficient rarely leads to more free time. Instead, it simply raises the expectations for what else we should accomplish. As we speed up, the world speeds up around us. Respond to emails faster, and you receive more emails. Automate tasks, and you are given new tasks. Improve your output, and people expect even greater output next time. Instead of liberating us, efficiency becomes a rising tide that forces us to swim harder. Burkeman encourages readers to question whether constant busyness is actually a sign of importance or simply a symptom of avoidance. Often, we use busyness to escape the discomfort of confronting our limitations. If we stay busy enough, we don't have to admit that we aren't in full control of our lives. Yet, facing this truth is essential. When we stop chasing the fantasy of total mastery, we can begin to engage more honestly with the world as it really is, uncertain, ever-changing, and uncontrollable. This chapter ends with a challenge. What if a meaningful life is not built through relentless accomplishment, but through the courage to let some things remain undone? By redefining success away from productivity and toward presence, depth, and clarity, we create space to build a life that reflects our true priorities rather than society's demands. Chapter 3: The Freedom of Accepting Limitation. Here, Burkeman pivots from critique to transformation. If our limitations cannot be erased, he argues, they must be embraced. Freedom is not the absence of constraints. It is the ability to choose which constraints to live by. The truth is that every meaningful life is built around commitments, relationships, work, passions, and values that narrow our possibilities in one direction while opening deeper possibilities in another. Saying yes to anything means saying no to countless alternatives. Burkeman confronts the cultural obsession with keeping options open. We hesitate to commit, fearing that something better may appear later. We dip lightly into activities instead of embracing them fully. We try to sample many versions of life instead of rooting ourselves in one. But this approach leads to a shallow experience of time, thin, fragmented, and restless. The richer experience comes from choosing something and surrendering to it. Commitment, he suggests, is not a prison, but a path to depth. He also critiques the modern addiction to distraction. Technology offers us endless ways to escape boredom, discomfort, or uncertainty. Instead of confronting our limited time head-on, we mask it with scrolling, notifications, and entertainment. But distraction steals the very life we are trying to live. When we retreat from difficulty, we also retreat from meaning. Burkeman encourages building the capacity to face discomfort without immediately fleeing from it. This discomfort is often the doorway to growth, creativity, and true presence. Another powerful insight is the idea that we must make peace with disappointing people. Because our time is finite, we cannot meet every expectation placed upon us. Many people overextend themselves because they fear letting others down. But freeing yourself from this fear is essential if you want to live intentionally. Learning to disappoint someone respectfully, honestly, is part of claiming authorship of your own life. Burkeman uses examples from psychology, philosophy, and everyday life to show how limitations, when embraced, create structure and clarity. A painter is freed by the boundaries of the canvas. A writer is shaped by the constraints of language. A person is guided by the commitments they willingly choose. Limitations focus our attention, making life sharper and more vivid. Instead of scattering our energy across endless possibilities, we can direct it toward what matters. The chapter concludes by encouraging readers to accept life's inherent uncertainties. Instead of demanding perfect conditions, perfect clarity, or perfect control before taking action, we can move forward even in uncertainty. Embracing limitations means embracing life itself, messy, unpredictable, finite, but profoundly meaningful when lived with intention. Chapter 4: Time, Presence, and the Joy of Doing Less. In this chapter, Burkeman explores how our obsession with future outcomes has robbed us of the ability to inhabit the present. Many people move through life treating the present moment as nothing more than a stepping stone to something else, a better job, a bigger achievement, a more ideal version of themselves. But when life becomes a constant march toward the future, we lose the ability to experience it fully. Burkeman challenges this mindset, urging us to see the present as the only place where life actually happens. He explores how the pursuit of more achievements, more status, more validation creates a cycle of dissatisfaction. Even when we reach a milestone, the satisfaction quickly fades as new goals appear. We tell ourselves that once we finish everything on our to-do list, we will finally enjoy life, but that day never comes. Burkeman encourages abandoning the fantasy that life will eventually settle into order. Instead, we must learn to enjoy life even when it is unfinished and imperfect. One of the most profound ideas here is what he calls the patience of the present. Instead of rushing toward completion, we can learn to slow down, even in small moments. Washing dishes, walking down the street, listening to a friend, these simple moments become richer when we stop seeing them as obstacles between tasks. Burkeman encourages approaching time with curiosity rather than urgency. When we drop the constant rush, we discover that presence brings a deeper form of productivity, one rooted in clarity and purpose. He also explores the value of doing fewer things, not because minimalism is trendy, but because our attention is limited. When we pour ourselves into too many commitments, we dilute our energy. But when we focus on a handful of priorities, relationships, creative work, personal growth, they flourish. Doing less does not mean laziness. It means directing your energy where it will create the most meaning. Burkeman encourages cultivating activities that have no productive value whatsoever: play, rest, hobbies, exploration. Modern society treats such activities as indulgent or wasteful, but they are essential for a life well lived. They reconnect us to joy, curiosity, and creativity. When we allow ourselves to be unproductive, we actually renew our sense of what matters. The chapter also addresses our cultural discomfort with waiting. We hate slowness, slow lines, slow internet, slow people, because slowness confronts us with our finitude. But there is wisdom in waiting. When we stop resisting the natural pace of life, time becomes more spacious. Burkeman invites readers to experiment with patience in everyday moments, treating waiting not as wasted time, but as an opportunity to return to oneself. In the end, this chapter teaches that we can reclaim time not by controlling it, but by surrendering into it. When we approach life with presence, patience, and willingness to do less, time begins to feel abundant, even though it remains limited. Chapter 5: Building a Life Within 4,000 Weeks. In the final chapter, Burkeman brings the book's themes together into a powerful call to action. Live deliberately. Accepting that our time is finite frees us to build a life shaped by meaning rather than pressure. Instead of trying to stretch ourselves across endless possibilities, we can choose a few things and choose them fully. He encourages us to build our lives around relationships, creativity, and contributions that matter. Rather than scattering attention across many shallow interactions, we can invest deeply in a few. Relationships are not efficient. They take time, patience, and vulnerability. But they are among the richest expressions of a meaningful life. Burkeman argues that choosing to spend time with people you love is not a distraction from productivity, It is the essence of why time matters. He also explores the importance of long-term projects. In a world obsessed with short-term wins and instant gratification, committing to something that unfolds slowly, a craft, a mission, a meaningful career, allows us to experience time as an evolving narrative rather than a series of tasks. These slow-burning pursuits teach us perseverance, resilience, and joy. They anchor us. Another crucial idea is learning to see life not as a race toward an ideal future, but as a series of moments to be shaped and inhabited. Instead of treating each day as a preparation for real life later, Burkeman urges us to treat each day as real life now. When we stop postponing our happiness until after the next achievement, life becomes richer immediately. He emphasizes the courage required to choose. Choosing means giving up alternative versions of yourself, other careers you could have pursued, other people you could have become, other paths you might have walked. This loss can feel painful, but it is also what gives your actual life its shape and meaning. Without choice, life remains vague and unformed. With choice, life becomes a story. Burkeman's closing message is both humbling and liberating. Your 4,000 weeks are enough, not for everything, but for what truly matters. The challenge is not to use time perfectly, but to use it consciously. When you stop trying to escape your limitations and begin accepting them as the container of your life, time begins to feel more meaningful, spacious, and real. He encourages readers to build a life grounded in presence, depth, connection, creativity, and acceptance. Time will always be limited, but when you live intentionally within those limits, 4,000 weeks becomes not a constraint, but a canvas. A space to build something uniquely your own. A space where meaning grows not from endless possibility, but from chosen commitments, lived fully. And in this acceptance, Burkeman suggests, we finally discover the freedom we have been seeking all along, not freedom from finitude, but freedom within it. Click on the subscribe button. Let us know in the comment the book you would love us to summarize for you.